The Manhattan District Attorney, Cyrus Vance Jr., has convened a grand jury. This grand jury is expected to decide whether or not the orange vomit and former illegal president of the United States should be indicted, or whether other executives at his company or the business itself should be indicted. And also, should prosecutors present the panel with criminal charges? I guess you have to take it a step at a time. Now, you know about a grand jury. When they are deciding, when the grand jury is impaneled of a number of good and true citizens, I don't know how many, 20, 30, 50, I have no idea. But when they're impaneled, they're told, all right, this is what we're going to be working on. Some activity down at the waterfront that we think involves illegal payments from Company A to the Longshoremen's Union. So we're going to investigate that. Also, there is a private school here in the city who may be avoiding paying its taxes by claiming it's a nonprofit, when in fact they're just raking in money by the barrels. Oh, and we have another one here about whether the former president of the United States ought to go to goddamn prison. I don't think Cyrus Vance will put it that way, but that's pretty much how it works. Now, this panel, this grand jury, will be in existence for 6 months. All grand juries have a life expectancy. It's not like a jury in a trial. And this one will be impaneled for 6 months. And they will gather 3 days a week and listen to whatever the various prosecutors will be presenting to them. And they'll hear several things, not just the case of this filthy orange vomit named Donald Trump. Now, this particular 6 months, I discovered, though, is longer than a traditional New York State grand jury assignment. Wonder why? Generally speaking, special grand juries like this are convened to participate in long-term matters rather than to hear evidence of whether or not somebody should be indicted for murder one or manslaughter or car theft or, whatever. This is a special grand jury just by definition because of the length of time that it's being impaneled. Now, what all this means, or what it indicates, I should say, according to the Washington Post, it means that Cyrus Vance Jr.'s investigation of the orange vomit and his business has reached an advanced stage, finally, after more than 2 years, and it suggests, too, that Cyrus Vance Jr., the district attorney, believes he has found evidence of crime, either by Trump, his company, or his filthy, vomitous family members. But you don't impanel a grand jury like this, it's my understanding, unless you, as the district attorney, really, truly, honestly believes there was a crime. For example, if it is a state case, say it's a murder, they discover a body on the floor with bullet holes. Well, that's a pretty good indication there was a crime. So the investigators gather the evidence, present it to the district attorney, and he or she goes before a grand jury and gets an indictment. And then the thing goes to trial. But usually those grand juries might last, I don't know what, a week or two. Depends on how much investigative energy has to be put out in order to put together the evidence of a crime, that the person lying on the floor with bullet holes in his head was actually killed and didn't commit suicide somehow with multiple bullet holes, whatever. So that makes this grand jury unusual. And people familiar with what Cyrus Vance Jr. has been investigating, and I have to admit, I'm just curious as hell. But they say his investigation is pretty expansive. His investigators are scrutinizing the Orange Vomit's business practices before he was president, including this bullshit where the Orange Vomit would manipulate the value of his various properties if he wanted, if he was filling in or having poor old Weisenberger or whatever the hell the guy's name is, filling in his tax returns, then they would devalue his worth. If he wanted to get a loan, they would increase the value of his worth. It just manipulated this way and that way. And in that manner, they defrauded banks, they defrauded insurance companies, and if any tax benefits were obtained illegally through this bullshit, well, that's another serious crime. Now, we can fall back on the usual bullshit about, well, this United States, a person is innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, okay. Unless that person is the Orange Vomit, who just dribbles guilt every time he climbs down from his pile of cheeseburgers or has somebody hoist him down. He just dribbles guilt. I mean, he's the kind of guy, if you were to shake his hand, you want to take a look real quick and see, make sure you still got all your fingers, or at least whatever ring you might have had on your fingers. The district attorney in this particular situation is also examining the compensation that was paid to top Trump organization executives. That also is, according to people familiar with how this investigation has gone so far. And in a statement issued yesterday evening, the Orange Vomit hoisted himself up, sliding around on that huge mound of cheeseburgers, barely retaining his balance, and said that the seating of the grand jury is, quote, a continuation of the greatest witch hunt in American history. This is purely political and an affront to the almost 75 million voters who supported me in the presidential election, and it's being driven by a highly partisan Democrat prosecutor. Oh, and then Trump, irony be damned, added this, quote, our country is broken. Our elections are rigged, corrupt, and stolen. Our prosecutors are politicized. And I will keep on fighting like I have been for the last 5 years. Oh, bless me, bless me. You want to kiss the hem of my, oh, you can't get up here on the mountain of cheeseburgers? I'll toss down my pants. You can kiss the cuffs and throw them back up. I can't sit up here naked on the cheeseburgers all night. You don't believe me that he said that last part, do you? Okay. Now, the Orange Vomit is facing 2 investigations of his business practices in New York. You probably know this. And both of them appear to have begun with the same man. Remember Michael Cohen? Didn't you? Now, come on. Didn't you just want to take him home and feed him biscuits or something? Come on. You know you did. Every time Michael Cohen is on MSNBC now, he's a frequent guest. And even when he was turning all the evidence on Trump that got him put in jail, didn't you want to just go up to him and Michael, oh, God, oh, we'll take care of your family. Don't worry. You'll be okay. You know you did. You know you did. Especially if you're a woman listening to this. Michael Cohen is the type of guy with that hangdog look that is permanently on his face. I mean, even at his most joyous moments in life, he's got that sad basset hound look, right? You know he does. And I know women listening to this program would have to admit that over all the times that you've seen Michael Cohen on television, you just wanted to stand between him and whoever was harassing him. You know you did. Oh my goodness, Michael Cohen. Now, of course, Michael was pled guilty to making hush money payoffs to hookers and then lying to Congress. That's what happens when you sell your soul to a filthy pig like the orange vomit. Eventually you're going to wind up in jail, like Cohen. And Cyrus Vance's criminal investigation, by the way, began in 2018 after Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to charges stemming from those hush money payoffs, which were made in the last days of Trump's 2016 campaign to women who said, he grabbed me by my he tried to rape me, he did rape me, he assaulted me. All of which the orange vomit will tell you never happened. It's just another Democrat plot. Those Democrat plots are all over the place. They're trying to get me. I won the election. Joe Biden stole it. You know that, don't you? Anyway, Vance was investigating those hush money payoffs for a number of reasons. And then the investigation expanded. And next thing you know, Cyrus Vance Jr., he had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to get this, but he wanted to look at millions of pages of Trump's tax returns. And he got what he needed to get. The U.S. Supreme Court told Trump to sit down and shut the fuck up. Oh, my goodness. Even with Amy Catholic Barrett, or whatever her name is, the newest one, and then the drunk, and then the other one, three of them that Trump put on the Supreme Court, didn't make any difference. Sit down, shut up. And separately now, New York's state attorney general, Letitia James, began a civil investigation of the Trump Organization a couple of years ago, also prompted by Michael Cohen's testimony to Congress. And that was when he said that Trump had lied to lenders and tax authorities and manipulated valuation of his assets, yada, 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 yada. So Cohen has been interviewed extensively by Cyrus Vance's team, which has added a former federal prosecutor, Mark Pomerantz, to help with the Trump case. Just remember that name. That name's going to be important. Now, the state attorney general's office, that would be Letitia James, she didn't explain what inspired her decision to turn her inquiry criminal. But people who are familiar with the kind of stuff said a shift from a civil investigation to a criminal investigation can be triggered by evidence that indicates the defendant intended to break the law. What, our boy, the orange vomit, Donald Jesus Trump, set out to break the law? Ooh. Now, the orange vomit has attacked both of these investigations, of course, and he pointed to comments by Attorney James, District Attorney Letitia James, during her 2018 election campaign, in which she called him an illegitimate president. No, and promised to investigate his family business. Well, Trump is the only U.S. president who's been charged with a crime. No, don't say Nixon. Only Trump. And the only U.S. president to be impeached twice, too. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.